Reflect in English podcast.
Welcome to our podcast. Today, we're diving into something super relatable for pretty much anyone who studies or learns anything, really. What do you do when your brain just feels completely wiped out?
Oh, yeah, that feeling. You're staring at the books or the screen and just nothing's sticking anymore. You feel stuck.
Exactly. And the big question is, how can you actually rest effectively? How do you fuel your brain again without feeling like you're just, wasting precious time?
Right. You might have this image of top students just powering through, studying nonstop.
Yeah, totally.
But what's fascinating is they often approach rest very differently. They figured out ways to not only relax their minds, but maybe even learn something new or gain a skill at the same time. It's not about being cold or robotic. It's just smart.
Okay, so what does this actually mean for you listening? We're going to unpack some really cool ideas that can help you hit refresh and come back stronger, smarter, and maybe even in a better mood.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so first, let's talk about a common trap. When you're feeling that study fatigue, what's the first thing loads of us do?
Reach for the phone.
Yep. Grab the phone, scroll through social media, watch a quick video, maybe binge a show. I know I definitely did that, especially back my first year of college.
It feels easy, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
a quick mental escape.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the interesting part. Our brains are kind of wired to seek out new information.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it like animals searching for food, right? Our brains are always looking for that next little bit of info.
Oh, okay.
And our phones, they deliver that constantly. Just endless little bits of new stuff very easily.
Right, but here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit worrying. This quick satisfaction, it has a downside. All those notifications, the ads, tiny news bites, different apps pulling you different ways.
Yeah.
They make it super hard for us to actually focus deeply on one thing.
And that leads to a really important point. Your ability to focus. It's kind of like a muscle.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't really use it, if you don't practice that deep focus, it gets weaker. So using your phone for rest can actually start this bad cycle.
How so?
Well, the less you focus deeply, the less you kind of want to focus deeply. Your brain gets used to that quick, fragmented information, not sustained, deep thought.
Wow, okay. So the phone break might actually be making it harder to study later.
It can, yeah. It trains your brain away from the kind of focus you need for learning.
All right, so if the phone's not the built idea, what should we be doing? What's a smarter way to rest that maybe even helps you learn?
Okay, so the first smart strategy we found is surprisingly simple. Explain what you're studying to someone else.
Just talk about it.
Yeah, basically. This is a fantastic method to use when you feel like there's just too much information swirling around or your thoughts are getting all mixed up.
Okay, I can see that. How does it work?
The idea is pretty straightforward. You explain the topic out loud, maybe to a friend, a classmate,
Yeah.
or honestly, even just pretend you're explaining it to an imaginary person or your cat.
Okay.
It forces you to structure your thoughts. For example, there was this graduate student studying music, complex stuff. Her roommate was studying neuroscience, totally different field.
Right.
So every couple of hours, they'd take a break and try to explain their research to each other. Now, because the roommate knew nothing about music theory, the music student had to use really simple words. She had to break down these complex ideas.
Ah, okay. So the lack of shared knowledge was actually key.
Exactly. And they found it was like stumbling on hidden treasure. They remembered the things they explained so much better.
Really?
Yeah, they understood them more deeply, saw connections they missed before. And they said even tough questions from professors didn't faze them because they'd already worked through explaining it simply.
That's fascinating. It's like teaching helps the teacher learn.
Precisely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's actually a well-known learning technique, sometimes called the Feynman technique, after the physicist. It really helps cement knowledge in your mind. Active recall, not passive reading.
Okay. Talk it out. I like that. Simple, but powerful. What's next? What if the problem isn't confusion, but more like boredom? Or your efficiency just tanks?
Right, that happens too. You hit a wall, feel sluggish. The next smart way to rest is great for that. It's all about switching things up, moving from one type of focused activity to another.
Switching up. But didn't we just say fragmented attention from phones is bad? How is this different?
Good question. It's different because you're not jumping between tiny, low-effort distractions. The goal here is to shift from your study focus to another activity that still requires focus, just a different kind of focus.
Okay, so avoiding those quick, easy info snacks from the phone again.
Exactly. You want something that engages your brain differently, but still keeps that focus muscle working.
So what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, instead of the phone, maybe try doing something with your hands.
Yeah.
Like a craft knitting, drawing, maybe building something, or reading a book just for fun, something totally absorbing that isn't study material. Or listen to a new song, but like really listen. Try to pick out the instruments. Or drawing, practicing calligraphy, cooking something new, even mindfully folding clothes, or doing some simple housework.
The key seems to be the focus then, doing it with real attention.
Absolutely. When you approach these other activities with intention and focus, you get this sense of accomplishment. You feel genuinely fulfilled, and you don't have that nagging guilt that you just wasted time scrolling.
Right, because you were still engaged in something meaningful, just different.
Exactly. Your tired study brain gets a real break by using different circuits, but your overall ability to concentrate stays sharp. It's like resting one muscle group while working another.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Talk it out, switch it up with focus. What about when you're feeling really resistant, like almost angry at your books?
Yes, that feeling of strong resistance or even frustration. This is where the third strategy comes in, and it's a powerful one. Get active. Exercise.
Okay, physical activity. Tell me more.
This involves pretty much any kind of physical movement, as long as it has a little bit of a challenge to it. It doesn't have to be intense, just intentional.
There's that saying, right? Life is about movement. Seems like it applies to learning, too.
It really does.
Yeah.
There have been big studies, like in the Netherlands and the US, that followed lots of students. And they consistently found that students who exercised regularly were actually better at focusing. Their concentration was stronger.
Wow. So it's not just about physical health.
Not at all. Top students often seem to know this intuitively. The person who originally documented these methods found that successful learners did all sorts of things. Rowing, swimming, lifting weights, yoga, climbing, even triathlons.
So a whole range of activities.
Yeah, the specific sport doesn't matter as much as the consistency and the challenge. When you exercise, you can set a tiny goal each day. Maybe do one more push-up than last time, or hold the yoga pose a bit longer.
Just pushing yourself a little bit.
Exactly. That feeling of making even tiny progress feels amazing. It boosts your mood, clears your head.
And presumably helps focus.
Definitely. It improves blood flow to the brain, which directly helps focus and memory. Plus, all the endless benefits for your body are a nice bonus.
Okay, exercise for when you're feeling really stuck or frustrated. Got it. That brings us to the last one.
Yes, and arguably the most fundamental type of rest, especially when you feel that deep, pervasive tiredness.
Yeah.
Sleep.
Sleep. It sounds so obvious, but
it's the first thing we tend to sacrifice, right? When time feels short.
Totally.
But think about this. Even after millions of years of evolution, we still haven't evolved to not need sleep. We spend about a third of our entire lives asleep. That's decades.
Wow, when you put it like that. So why is it so incredibly important? What's actually happening when we sleep?
Well, our bodies, and especially our brains, produce waste products just from functioning during the day. Think of it like your phone getting clogged up with temporary files and running slow.
Okay, a biological cleanup process.
Exactly. During deep sleep, your brain has this amazing cleaning system, the glymphatic system, that works really hard to clear out all that metabolic waste that builds up while you're awake.
So if you don't sleep well or enough, that junk just stays there.
Pretty much. It's like that phone that never clears its cache. It gets slower, less efficient. Your thinking gets foggy. It's harder to learn, harder to remember. Your overall mental performance just drops.
That makes perfect sense. No wonder pulling all-nighters feels so awful the next day.
All right. That's why top students consistently show that getting good quality sleep isn't wasted time. It is the most effective way to truly rest and recharge your brain. It's absolutely essential for your brain to consolidate learning and work its best.
Okay, so it's really clear that resting isn't just about stopping work. It's about these smart choices that actually help you learn more and feel better in the process.
Exactly. These methods, talking things out, switching to focused hobbies, getting active, and really prioritizing good sleep, they're not just about avoiding burnout, though they help with that too. They're actually about boosting your overall brain power, sharpening your focus, and maybe even finding more joy in the whole learning process.
So here's a little something for you listening to think about. How could you maybe tweak just one small part of how you rest, starting today, to make it more effective? What's one new activity you might try to give your brain the right kind of break?
Yeah, just remember, being a smart learner isn't only about how many hours you put in studying, it's also very much about how wisely you rest.
Thanks for diving deep with us on this one. We really hope this helps you feel refreshed and totally ready for whatever learning adventure is next for you.